right, here we go. Sam Long actually building a nice little gap. You know, these are little seconds, but he's going to have a rest. And in that rest, he's actually allowed to take on nutrition. As we see Matthias Margier, Carl Smith coming in there, Clement Mignon, Rudy von Berg, Rico Bogen, Mika Noot, Martin van Riel.
Carl Smith is running really well at the moment. We saw him win a race in Chamarine just a couple of weeks ago where he ran through from a strong bike, but ran through to the front of the race. And the way he's running right now, he's sort of leaving Sam behind.
Look at that gap. Yep, and for sure, these conditions we've been talking about, 12 degrees, everybody's out there in a puffer jacket. Carl loves that stuff. He thrives in these conditions, so they definitely suit him a lot more than the heat. But even Martin van Riel, no, that's Martin van Riel's not even in the picture yet. He's at the very top of the screen. Kyle is just putting daylight between himself and the group.
Yeah, so we see behind him it's Rico Bogen, then Mika Noot, then Sam Long. We then had Matthias Margier followed by Rudy von Berg, and then you could see Martin van Riel and Magnus Ditlev in the distance. This gap is crazy. Like you said, Jan, these conditions suit him. A New Zealand boy, this is probably actually quite hot for a New Zealander.
I feel like triathlon before was a lot more like boxing. You'd have that many categories and different belts where people would fight, and you would never know who's the best boxer in the world, right? Whereas the T100 comes in, and whether you're a fan of martial arts or not, the UFC is something that's done and brought all the best fighters together. And, you know, they all sort of go at each other every single weekend. And this is the thing, and the T100, where finally we've seen the very best of the very best go against each other. And Carl Smith is
taking it to everyone.
Looking to put etch his name on one of these trophies.
So we can see that Martin has in fact moved up to second position here. It looked like he worked into the run a little bit for the first 400, 500 metres out of T2, and he is the one who's sort of trying to make the move to push across to Kyle.
Kyle looking very controlled at the moment. We'll see what happens if Martin can close that gap. I honestly think he will. And then we've got a race on our hands.
Yeah, I think a lot of chat has been about Martin van Riel and about how excited we are to see him race over this distance. He's done some middle distance racing that he's done very, very well at, but by his own admission, he hasn't really raced many of these top athletes, not head-to-head in a situation like this. But he is also a really big-time performer. He's got real sort of history of great results, top 5 results at the Olympic Games, no less. So he's a really, really classy athlete, and he will love this way of racing where there is a pack. There are a lot of people here to race against. We're not spread out in the way that we often see with minutes. Oh, and Carl Smith has missed the littering station, so he's just gone back to get that.
So let's clarify that rule. That must go inside the bin. It's not allowed to go on the ground, or it is littering.
Yeah, there is a littering zone, and then there is also the bin, and the only thing that is allowed to go on the ground is drinks. But I'm not sure if that was quite within littering zone, which is why I think Kyle turned around to try and put it in the bin himself to avoid a penalty.
So it's wrappers that have to go straight into the bin. The cups don't. They can be picked up. Yeah, that's what pressure does. Well, you want to make sure you don't get disqualified, but I mean, you also want to make sure. You know, he's just basically given his lead away to Martin van Riel, but let's see what the two can do together once they start running shoulder to shoulder. As we see the two front runners joining the lead, this will be interesting to see if Martin attacks him, if he's able to attack him. I honestly think the pace is probably a little bit too high to make a big surge and try and go at it by yourself. And yeah, I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't back myself in a sprint against Carl Smith, but I think both of these guys have got really good leg speed, and let's not forget, it's lap 1 of 4. And Rico Bogen looks, at least from this camera perspective, like he still wants to throw his hat in the ring, and we haven't seen this kind of dynamic in the race, like especially this kind of later of a stage. It's building to be a great grand finale.
And that's the excitement that we like to see in triathlon, that sometimes we don't get. Sometimes the race is a bit of a foregone conclusion by the time we get this far through a race, but it absolutely isn't right now.
No, and I think, you know, just from an athlete's perspective, when you're running in this moment, there is so much trying to get your thoughts to check in with yourself, but also wondering, when is the move coming? Is there a move coming? Is he going to sprint? You know, and it's little nuances when you're there, you're trying to listen for your competitors' breathing. Another trick you like to do if you're running behind is just tapping the elbow of the guy running in front of you. It is one of the most annoying
Yes.
thing. But the front runner's got to keep his composure. You've got to keep cool. The thing Martin is doing really well here, I think the wind is not quite as strong as it has been predicted, but he's sitting in his slipstream and just getting himself drawn along by
a little advantage, right, over Kyle, and just tucking in just a little bit behind him.
Rico Bogen is closing the gap on our two front runners.
Yeah,
no guts, no glory.
That's for sure. I mean, this angle is hard to tell because obviously with the front-on angle, it sometimes foreshortens the gap, but I'd say there's no question that he is gaining on the two leaders. So our duo up ahead is about to become a trio, and the battle for these podium spots is still alive.
So Rico's definitely closed that gap, and he keeps looking at his watch. So that makes me kind of suspect that, as we see Alistair Brownlee going the other way, that he's very much within his pacing element. Maybe he's just set himself a good rhythm for the first lap. And, you know, that's how he won his 70.3 world title as well, was actually on the run. He had a very, very strong performance there.
You can see it here. Look at this. Pain face for Kyle Smith, pain face for Rico Bogen, but composure for Martin Van Riel. And you can see about a minute back that if you look sort of through them, there you go, over their back shoulder there, you can see Magnus Ditlev, Mika Nut and Matthias Margier. So they're about a minute back, and they'll see each other here on this turnaround and eye each other. And so we know that Kyle Smith is probably, oh, not probably, definitely in the run shape of his life. He ran 1:09 over the half marathon in his last race to break the run course record at the Challenge Championships. And since Martin Van Riel came up to him, he's sort of refused to let the lead go. He wants to be the one at the front, taking charge of the race, very similar to what the best triathletes we've ever seen always tend to do. And, you know, Jan Frodeno did it, Alistair Brownlee did it. When people would come up to them, they didn't really want to sit on the back shoulder. They wanted to be the ones at the front of the race, being assertive, being aggressive, dictating the tempo. And Kyle Smith is the one doing that right now.
Yeah, we have the three of them in front of what is the world's most famous bridge, half hidden in the fog. What pictures these are.
One of the locals this morning was telling me that they call the fog here Carl.
Rico Bogen just made a move to the front.
Oh, here we go.
He's putting a surge there.
And Kyle is straight.
That was a strong surge.
Martin's the one who seems to be struggling to respond at this moment, doesn't he? And I was actually just about to say that none of them had shown their cards. They were all keeping their cards pretty close to their chest, but Rico Bogen did put a little surge into that U-turn.
You said it earlier, Jan, that Rico looked down at his watch almost like he was just running a pace that he felt comfortable with and within himself. And this shows that I think you were right. For him to be the one to be assertive and put in a really strong surge that Martin Van Riel is yet to get back on as a result of.
So if I may analyze this from my point of view, we talked about the ages beforehand, and this is a clear sign of experience to me. The youngest guy attacks. He makes a significant move just before the turnaround.
And after the turnaround.
All that momentum, you just got to slow right down again, and everybody's just going to run to the back of you. Then you see Kyle Smith didn't leave an inch. He was straight onto the back. He has that explosiveness. He covered the move. Martin Van Riel gave himself 100 meters, 200 meters. He closed that gap gradually. He's not letting his heart rate spike as much. I think he played the much more confident game and actually is saving himself for what he knows is going to be tough. It is good to see, isn't it? Three of them leading the front of the race, shoulder to shoulder. The anxiety is building, is heading for the last lap. I'm loving this.
Yeah,
this is great.
They're now, on their way back on lap 3, so in this out and back course, so they are deep into this 18-kilometer run now. And
when last have we seen 3 guys going off the front together?
A battle like
in a
this,
world-class field.
At a race this deep. We haven't seen this in a long time. We obviously saw Christian Blumenfeld and Ben Canute at 70.3 Worlds with some famous battles with yourself and Sebastian Kienle. 3 at the front this deep into a race that means this much. No, it's been a while.
And all 3 looking good. I mean, I'm happy for Rico. I've been, you know, chatting to him a little bit, and for him to come out, he was always aggressive at every race he's gone to. He's left nothing out there. And everybody sort of, you know, smiled down a little bit. Oh, young kid, you'll learn. But he's taking it to these guys. We are heading for the very last lap 3 guys at the front. And I couldn't tell you who looks good right now. Whoa!
No, after you. Very polite.
A bunch of gentlemen, but that again shows you everybody seems to be feeling fairly confident. They're now running side by side, which means the pace has dropped off. Showed you again the lack of experience. Rico Bogen, he would have covered an extra 5 meters going that wide, unless he was trying to wave the guys through, saying, hey, you take the lead, I'm going to sit in here. Carl Smith was almost wondering, what are you doing? Like, reading his face. That could be a sign of fatigue, because when you're tired, you just can sometimes miss the apex of a turn. But yeah, definitely interesting tactics as Martin Van Riel's just sort of trying to do his own thing, really.
For one, I want to see a sprint finish. I don't think we've ever had.
No, not at this level.
At this level of racing, in the T100, a 3-way sprint finish for the win.
No.
I mean, that's what the fans want to see right now, I think, and I'm holding on for it.
I know this is speculative, but who do we all think is the fastest over the final 100 if it does come down to it?
Carl Smith.
I'm throwing my pen in the air. Jan's straight in there with a prediction.
Give me one, Vicky.
No, I'm in there with a wish, not a prediction.
Oh, okay, a wish. I'm putting my money still on Martin.
I've got Rico then, I guess.
There we go, right.
There we go. If I'm very honest, I'm not sure Rico has got the patience to wait. Just how he placed his attack, he did want to go early on. His demeanor and his facial expression hasn't really changed. I think he's still sitting in his zone. And Carl's setting the pace as though they're going for a hard tempo run all together and trying to get the most out of each other.
It seems like it's happened quickly, but we're 15 kilometers into the run, 3 kilometers to go.
It has gone quick.
Kyle Smith, Rico Bogen, Martin Van Riel. Martin Van Riel, he's never been beaten before at this distance, keep in mind. He's undefeated over middle distance. Rico Bogen, the reigning 70.3 world champion. And Kyle Smith, he's led T100 races before. He's never won one.
And see by the body position of Carl Smith, he's just starting to lean forward a little bit. It feels like the pace is getting picked up again. Gradually, though. It's not an attack. It's just kind of trying to
it up a little bit.
Grind the guys out.
This is where you'll see who really is starting to struggle if he is just picking up the pace a little bit.
So we saw that was the first time that Carl actually took that turnaround quite as wide. All of them picked the same line there. There were definitely no inches given. It was a much more effective kind of turnaround, as we must be getting into, within 2 kilometers.
So this point here is about 2.6, 2.5 kilometers to go. It's the stretch back in. That final U-turn they just went around, that's the furthest point at the course. And this is, where they are right now is about 2.5 kilometers to go in a basic straight line to the finish line.
And he's got that bit nailed today, but he just hasn't had the legs to deliver at the final part. And it's that puzzle of triathlon, just piecing all the bits of the jigsaw together.
So interestingly, as they went through the aid station there, both Kyle and Rico took on what would surely be the last drink before we come to this inevitable sprint that seems to be happening. Touch wood. Martin chose to stay within his own. He did not take on anything, and he is looking very, very good. For this nail-biter of a finish we're about to have.
So here's one for you. If we're going for a sprint finish, are they waiting until they've taken that final corner onto the carpet, which is only not even 100 meters, or is someone going to go a little bit before that, do you think?
Well, the question always in that kind of technical left-right is the finishing line short enough, that your little gap that an attack beforehand is going to cost. It does allow you to be the first to accelerate out of the corner. So I think there is going to be some shoulder barging going on into that last turn. They're not going to be quite as courteous as they were at the turn.
Yeah, no one's going to be after you at this point, yes.
No, absolutely. As they go shoulder to shoulder, it's no longer side by side. They're definitely getting ready for it. And it's not a tactical run into the sprint, which you oftentimes have as well, where athletes actually slow down.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that they've slowed down at all at this point. It doesn't appear that they've started to get super cagey about it. And Yeah, they're still keeping the pace on, but knowing, as they will do, I mean, we're talking about the inevitable sprint finish. They'll be thinking about that as well. They'll know that in just a couple of kilometers' time, less than now, they're going to be faced with absolute sprint for the glory.
You said something earlier, Jan. You said you don't want to see the front of the race until basically the step before the finish line. And Martin Van Riel, he hasn't seen the front of this run basically since the start. He ran up to Kyle Smith. He was sort of in front of him for about 5 meters, and then Kyle retook the lead, and then he sat at the back the whole way. He might be thinking exactly what you're thinking.
No, and these guys, they're slowly dialing up the tempo. Martin Van Riel, interestingly enough, 2 times made the same error because he comes out wide. They're all running in a single line, and he's had to yield to an oncoming runner and just lose a couple of meters. And, you know, it's just... I mean, the pace is picking up. We're getting close to the finish.
This is where the action's happening right now. These lads are just coming off that gravel path for the very last time. They're going to hit the road, and then they're surely within about a kilometer of the finish line now. Still strung out, 1, 2, 3.
I don't think I've ever seen this. I don't think I've ever... I mean, last time in a major race was Beijing 2008. There were 4 of us going on the finishing.
Who won that, by the way?
Yeah.
Sorry. Who won it? Can you just remind me? But right now, I mean, I'm getting nervous sitting here as the pace is picking up. Rico, and you can see already here, now they're picking up the pace and they're fighting for the apex line on the inside. No, they just want to make sure they've got the shortest line.
I think they're picking it.
Rico's going early. This is way out. I mean, this is going to be a long way to the finish still.
There's still about a K to go. Rico Bogen's made his move. You saw Kyle Smith come up the inside. Rico Bogen didn't let him have it. He put in an extra move.
And right now, Martin's not giving him an inch.
Not an
Nothing.
inch.
He's not playing it tactical. Now he knows this is the deciding moment, and it's all for gold and glory.
Kyle Smith came back up. He's overtaken Rico Bogen. Rico Bogen looks like he's hurting. He looks like that effort really hurt him and took it out of him.
Is that his youth showing again there, as you said earlier, Jan, with that potential tactical error of going into the U-turn for the attack rather than out of the U-turn? He went really early then, and maybe he spent a few too many pennies.
We're within inside the final kilometre. Martin Van Riel sitting tight behind Rico Bogen. He has not left 3rd spot for about the last 15 kilometres.
Oh, is he going again? Here he goes again.
Another move.
T100 providing the goods. This is absolutely epic, literally.
He's ragged, his arms are moving all over the place. It doesn't look smooth. His face is showing the exertion, the pain, but he's still
Kyle
attacking.
Smith's gone. Kyle Smith's gone. Rico Bogen, can he hold on? He's made his 3rd big effort to try and break the group, but it looks like he's the one who's being broken as they get to the blue carpet.
Oh, my goodness.
This is the final corner coming up right now, and Kyle Smith's going to lead into it, but Van Riel is right on his heels.
Kyle Smith's gone.
Kyle Smith is putting down the hammer. Oh, my goodness. This is the best finish we have seen.
Rico Bogen's pushing up to Martin Van Riel. Can Martin Van Riel overtake him?
Martin's coming.
Oh, my God.
And for the first time in 15 kilometres, Martin Van Riel's seen the front of the race. The finish line is inside.
They're side by side.
Kyle Smith, Martin Van Riel. Martin Van Riel's in front. Martin Van Riel, Kyle Smith. Kyle Smith.
Oh, my goodness. We are going to need an extra camera angle. I think Martin Van Riel.
I think it was Martin Van Riel.
Oh, wow.
That's the effort. That is the effort of T100. And we are sat here, or stood here, unsure of who has won a T100 race. For the first time ever, we could not have had a better finish to that race. I don't think a single one of us' heart rate is below about 150 beats. That was extraordinary racing from 3 classy athletes.
That's the best race I've ever seen. That's the best race I have ever seen.
It looked like Martin Van Riel slightly got the touch to Kyle Smith and Rico Bogen in 3rd.
Oh,
here we go. Who's going to break the tape? There you go. That's Martin's arm, Martin's chest right there as Kyle just comes in.
That was...
There you go.
Wow.
That's the better
See it from there. Who would have thought the T100 is going to have to start introducing side cameras at the finish line? I mean, this is stuff you see at 100-meter sprints that have won in less margins than this.
Well, that was just a breathtaking finish to that race, and I just don't think we could have asked for more from these men.